Hello.
Hello, welcome back to Aether. So today we continue in talking about relationship, healing a relationship, and then we talked about healthy boundary.
Yeah, so specifically in relationships, talking about bullying, because it's such a huge thing these days. And so, last time was healthy boundaries, and before that, it was all about not taking it personally, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like we mentioned that when we say bullying, we kind of imagine like a high school, middle school bullying, but we're not talking about that. It's more in a bigger picture, right? Like adult society, there's bullying is happening. You can say abusive relationship. That's one of the bullying, right? And some are very psychologically, mentally bullies.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
We're not talking about physical bullying here, more up here. And then some people don't know they're doing or they're receiving bullying. Some people don't know, and then they just think it's normal. So we want to include those ones, those situations, and talk about it, how to deal with it, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's way more. It's way more of a thing than people probably realize. That's what you're talking about here. Is that it's bullying is actually kind of almost accepted behavior. In relationships, and in society in general. So people have recently tried to take a strong stand against bullying in schools, and that's great. But it's
they're
also
kind of separating in a way.
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah. They're saying they're kind of almost drawing a boundary, like you're saying that it's in the school, but it's actually in the home. And it's at work, and it's especially these days it's at work, and it's with your friends, it's between the people and actual organizations around us that run our lives. I won't say names, but it's around in a lot of places, and it's oh boy, so it's something I grew up with. I'm kind of an expert on this one. And so it's like people can grow, and that's why I really identify with this subject, is because you can actually grow up in an environment where bullying is the norm. And so you can be on the receiving end of it, like I was, and you can think that that's your proper place in the world, is to be on the receiving end of that stuff, that you deserve it, and that you really are to blame, right? Because that's what happens, right? And we'll talk about that, but we'll also talk about how it is more general.
So like if you think about manipulation, it's one form of the bullying. And if you think about that, if you look at that, and then, you can probably tell, lots of people manipulate. And without being aware, that happens a lot, right? And I mentioned that, I think last week, parents tend to manipulate kids.
Yeah, you were talking about that last week.
All the time.
Yes, they do, and that's where kids learn it. They learn it mostly from their parents, because their parents are literally manipulating them into what parents consider to be acceptable behavior, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then they like parents, they are trying to protect them. They're trying to teach them, right? But in their convenience, lots of times, right? And then,
that's not. I don't know how hard you can be on parents, because there are so many pressures on them. They have so little time. And they've never been shown a different way in many cases, right? And so it's easy to be rough on yourself as a parent too. I mean, it wasn't until I met you that I learned a better way of parenting. that I would have been one of those manipulators as well. You can have time on your phone if you do these things first, right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of typical,
Yeah.
right?
It's manipulation. If
Yeah.
if it's a consequences,
Mhm.
I think we mentioned about it last week.
Mhm.
If it's a consequences, yes, that's okay. But if it's just a punishment and there's no relation between kids studying and then devices, if there's no connection, and then you're taking away screen time because the kids didn't do something, it's just that
It took me a while to figure out what you meant by that. So you were saying like there has to be a connection between them.
Mhm.
So I didn't really get why that was actually a thing for you. That's what you wanted, and because looking back at it, I'm kind of laughing at myself because what you were actually trying to convey to me was
Mhm.
that what you want to do is just let the kids know that there's a consequence, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
to doing things one way, right?
Mhm.
If they eat candy all day long, that's all they eat, they're going to hurt their stomachs, hurt their bodies, hurt their teeth,
Mhm.
and they're going to injure themselves, right?
Yeah.
Um, um,
That's consequence.
that's consequence,
Yeah.
right? So you're just telling them what will happen. You're not bringing in the stick and saying this. If you do this, then this bad thing will happen because I'm going to make it happen. It's just that it actually will happen.
Yeah, that's
and if they do something else, if they eat their veggies, they'll grow up big and strong, right? So
you are not creating punishment, right? Then you are just controlling and manipulating.
That's controlling and manipulating.
Yeah. And then lots of parents do that.
They consider that normal. That's considered normal parenting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good parenting.
So I've tried to talk her into writing a book on parenting because she has a different way of doing it, which all that stuff is out. That's it makes it just kind of more work as a parent.
It takes more time and more work.
It does take more work. So
because you're not controlling with fear, right? That's fast and quick and fast, and you can manipulate.
Yeah, you'll do it because I say
using your power and
do it.
authority.
Yeah,
right. But that's not healthy way.
Yeah. So that's the parenting side where it probably ends up coming from in society. But how we're going to focus today is how that kind of crystallizes into some really bad behavior. In specifically in this case, gaslighting, right? So what does that mean? What does gaslighting actually mean? So that's something we can talk about for a minute. Is really what it comes down to is that it's about manipulation, right? It's about controlling the other person. You kind of put everything on the table as far as psychological techniques, any kind of the dark side of psychological techniques in order to control a person. I mean, you're not strapping them down and giving them that brainwashing kind of stuff like you see in movies or something like that. But you are, in a way, it kind of a little bit lighter than that. You are, it does involve falsification of facts, right? So you could say lying straight out, or you could say that you are perpetuating things that are falsehoods. So those are they fall into the similar category. But you're also doing things that you're accusing the other person, right? So let's try to come up with an example.
You don't have the list
of what to look for?
Gaslighting.
What to look
behavior.
Okay, yeah, sure, we can go with that.
Do you have the list?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what it involves is blaming, distracting, discrediting. So like, so what I mean by distracting, let's break this down a little bit more.
Yeah.
So blaming, that's pretty clear. So you blame the other person. They're the ones who are at fault for what the issue. Distracting is like when, if you challenge the person, right, then what they'll do, who's doing the gaslighting, they'll distract you by asking a question back. So if you're trying to call them out on it, they'll ask you a question back and say, oh, so like, why are you saying that to me, right? What is the purpose behind, blaming me, right? I didn't do it, right? And that's clear here. And then they'll do this. They'll say, so what is
you accusing me?
Yeah,
kind of thing?
yeah, or
right?
Oh, so you're going to play this game, are you? Or right, whatever, right? So something like that that will turn the tables right back on that person, or in some way distract them from their train of thought, right? Or like hit them completely out of the blue with something else, right?
So they are not answering the question.
Correct.
So they are avoiding to
They're
answer.
avoiding answering the question,
Yeah,
and
because they can't answer.
and they're directing your attention to what they would want you, what they want you to look at instead, right? So that's another one. Another one is discrediting. So in other words, they talk about you to other people, right? So they go behind your back, and then they say things. Everybody's heard about this before. It's gossip, right? All that kind of stuff. They'll also minimize your feelings. So if you say that that's really upsetting to me, right? If I said something to you and you say that's really upsetting to me, I'll say, you're making a big deal out of nothing, right? Why are you being so sensitive, right? They'll minimize your feelings, like they don't matter, like you're completely irrelevant, right? They'll also deny, of course, right? And they'll say words that appear on the surface like they care.
This is
Yeah.
pretty. How can I say it? What would be the word I'm allowed to use for here?
Well, as an empath, I know that this is one that really strikes you hard because it's a two-faced stuff.
I can cry
right?
here.
Yeah. It speaks to people being two-faced, or those kind of toxic relationships where people make it look like it's nice.
Manipulation.
To you. Okay.
To you, to me at least,
to
like,
you.
oh,
I got more of a different form.
I love you, right? I love you. I'm doing this because I love you, and then they punish you, or
they manipulate, they blame you, they do all that kind of stuff.
And then abuse you.
They abuse you. At the same time, they're pretending, they're saying, oh, I love you. Yeah. Right?
And then this happens in abusive situations a lot, and that makes the abusee, is that how you say it?
The one who's receiving it? Yeah.
Stays there.
Yes.
Right? And that's the manipulation.
That's the carrot.
Yeah.
So that's the carrot they dangle, and then they hit you with the stick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Let's go on.
Let's go on. I want to focus on that one. Yeah, that's hard for an empath. Yeah. So then they rewrite history, right? So in other words, they'll retell something. So when something
they clean up, they screen,
they whitewash.
Yes.
And they distort what really happened to make it so that they come out looking all clean. Right. And that really it was your thing, and that they had to help you out, or whatever, right?
And then they what is it? Discrediting.
Discredit,
Yeah, right. They go tell other people this rewrite story, right? And then they believe that person.
Yeah, they tell them an alternate reality. They go behind your back and they tell other people this alternate reality kind of stuff. And they put so much energy into that alternative reality. Why don't they just frickin' deal with reality?
Because they don't want to.
Yeah. Because that means that they've got to do some work. Yeah. So that is, in a nutshell, what kind of defines gaslight. Or sorry, I missed out one thing. I guess I kind of mentioned at the beginning. It's lying, right? Straight up lying, or like I would like include perpetuating something that is a lie. So they may not be the one who's intentionally lying, but if they're perpetuating the lie, maybe unknowingly, right? Because I've actually been on the receiving end of a gang of gaslighters who are working together. There's one who's kind of the main person, and they enlist other people to do their work to help their goal, which is to beat up on the focus of their attention, that negative attention. So I would call that also gaslighting when that other person is being enlisted. So what they do is they believe that story. The person who's lying and making up all this stuff, rewriting history, manipulating all that kind of stuff. They're kind of like the mastermind, right? They generally know what they're doing, but they are being foolish. But the other ones that they get enlist also gaslight, even though they don't know they're lying. They think that they are telling the truth. That the story is the real story. So they can be involved without necessarily, I would say, intentionally lying. There's no intention on their part. So all that is that's what gaslighting is all about. As you can see, it's not nice behavior, but it's actually been an epidemic of it in recent years, ever since certain things have happened that have kind of changed our world a little bit. It's been rough for so many people because of that, right? So many people who haven't bought into the story that's going on. That's one certain big story, but there's so many opportunities for gaslighting that don't involve it, but just manipulation and stuff in general and abuse. So since that big one came out, it's become an epidemic on top of all the stuff that was already there in the first place. So my heart goes out to people who are on the receiving end of this, right? Who are told that they are crazy, because that's what happens. You say you're crazy, you're fringe, you're that stuff just is just ridiculous. You're just being a ridiculous person, and I don't want to have anything to do with you, kind of thing, or whatever, right? So that stuff is a major part of what's been impacting people so much lately. I mean, and then, let's talk about signs of it, right? So if the first thing to do is recognize what it is, right? If you want to be able to deal with this effectively, you have to be able to recognize that that's what's going on. And so certain signs are like, you doubt your feelings, you doubt your view of reality, right? So if you are just always, if you're one of your first responses to things up against this kind of resistance is self-doubt. If you're speaking to a certain person and you start doubting yourself all the time, that is a major red flag.
That you have been bullied.
That you're being bullied, that you're being gaslit, and you may not know it, right? And that was what it was like for me, because I grew up in it, right?
People think that's just their personality, but no, it's not. It's just it got affected. Your personality got affected by surroundings, and now it's creating this self-doubt, right? Behavior.
And another aspect of that is that you question your judgment and your perceptions, right? So if you're full of that self-doubt, right? If you feel vulnerable and insecure, right? That's another one. If you feel alone and powerless, right? So if you're feeling isolated, right?
Even you're not isolated.
Right? Even if you're with other people and you still feel alone, that's a big red flag there too, right? Because that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to make you feel as though you're crazy. You're alone, that you don't, and if they don't, if your feelings aren't being recognized, right, and they don't matter, then why do you matter, right? You're just a doormat, kind of, right? You wonder if you are what they say you are, right? So if you're being blamed and painted as this negative person, and you start wondering if you really are that bad person, that is a major red flag again, right? That's what they were always trying to do for me, right? So if you're disappointed in yourself and who you become, then that could be another part of it, right? That's just another indicator. You feel confused, right? And so that's what's happened in the world around us, right? In the last few years, there's been a tremendous amount of confusion, right? So what's real out there? There's so much information and disinformation, right? Disinformation or misinformation, but certain things are being always on one side of the story are always being labeled misinformation, right? Always labeled and immediately. They don't necessarily take the time to look at it. It's just, it's supporting that side, misinformation, automatic, right? Just labeled. So if you feel confused, there's no wonder, right? But that's an indicator that this is what's going on. You worry that you're worried maybe that you're too sensitive, right? Somebody's dismissing your feelings all the time, and then you maybe say straight out, "What are you talking about? That's irrelevant. That doesn't matter. That's just not a thing, right? Who cares about that stuff, right?" So it's like you're being too sensitive. They might say it just directly. Or you have a sense of impending doom, right? That something bad could happen when you're interacting with that person. So if you're going to go and talk to a certain person and you have this, right? Because why do you feel like, because you've been bruised by that person so much, right? You sense it subconsciously, even if you have other reasons that you come up with for continuing the interaction, right? You spend a lot of time apologizing, right? That's another indicator, because you're being blamed. And so you're made to think that you're at fault when really you're not. You feel inadequate, right? And that's because they want you to feel small. They want everything about you to be minimized. You second guess yourself. Again, there's that self-doubt. You assume others are disappointed in you, right? You wonder what's wrong with you. If you put it in a nutshell, that's what the programming was that I got. There is something wrong with you. Those words. That kind of condenses that the millions of different forms that phrase took for one situation or another, right? So you struggle to make decisions because you distrust yourself. So if you don't trust your own judgment, then you're going to distrust yourself in general, right? So that is because your sanity has been called into question so much, right? So those are clear indicators that you are being gaslit, right? Or subject to gaslighting. I'm not sure what the proper terminology is there.
And then you feel these feelings all the time. That means it became your subconscious program.
Correct. Yes, exactly. And this stuff does interact with your subconscious mind all the time. So like this, somebody's only going to continue to gaslight you if you leave yourself open to it. If you're vulnerable to it, then they're going to continue to do it because they know they've got something on you, right? And it's starting to work. So they're getting their way, right? So that's why they're going to keep going with it, right? You're basically rewarding them. And you only do that because of subconscious issues, because you feel you need that person in your life for some reason,
right?
For security, for some sense of belonging, some connection, human connection, relationship, whatever is going on. You're going back there. Maybe it's your significant other. Well, hopefully not, right? But it could be, right? Or it could be It could be another kind of family relationship, right? So, or if it's friends, whatever the case may be. Also, there's abuse like that in workplaces, right? I've seen it.
Yeah, and then you are. It's normal to be afraid of losing any kind of relationship, right? You built the relationship, and then that's someone it could be a family member or friends, doesn't matter, but that person that in your life, and then losing is in different way you can be afraid of, and that they're going to be even more mad at you.
Yeah,
and then,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And something worse going to happen. That's one big fear, right? And then losing that relationship, you might feel like you're going to lose the love that they are, the part that they're manipulating. They love you, and that's why they do this, because they care, even if it's not a healthy way of showing love, right? But still, you believe that's the love, and then you scare of losing it, right? So yeah, those things happens.
It's just a subconscious programming. Like in my case, I had a sense of belonging. My sense of belonging in my family, right? My identity was connected to these people, right? And I desperately wanted their approval, so I would keep going back to try to get it.
Right.
What I would get instead is being told one way or another that I'm still inadequate, right? Those kind of things, right? So that stuff can get complicated, and it has to do with those subconscious programs that are working against you, right? Things about your self-worth, your self-identity, your just your believing in yourself, right? That you are a worthy person. All of those things and many more can contribute to keeping you in that kind of negative relationship, or prevent you from resolving it, right? You can say it kind of other way, right? A little slightly different. So what do you do about it, right? So that's what it is, and those are the signs of it. So what do you do about it? Like, so one thing is to create space, right? So you in some fashion calm yourself, right? You can do breathing, centering exercises, those kind of things. You can create a little bit of distance from yourself and that person, the way we were talking about in the first episode, with not taking it personally. And that's how I learned to deal with it, right? That was my way out, was to not take it personally when they said things. So basically, I wouldn't believe anything. I wouldn't believe anything they said to me at all, no matter what it was. I just decided that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try this, just see what happens. And I'm going to not believe what I said about myself either. Because in that situation, that's just as important, because if it's subconscious that you're beating up on yourself, it's important that you don't believe yourself, right? So just take it all and just put it on the shelf, like we were saying in the 2 episodes ago. Don't receive it, that's being said, or what you're thinking, and believe it. Just take it all and put it over to the side on the shelf. You put it up there on the display, and you can take down the pieces later, think them through, right? Is this piece worth having in your life, right? And then over time, you'll be able to start putting some connection points together. You'll start to see some patterns that wait a minute, this doesn't add up, right? And that's what it took for me, is I had to have, and that's another thing you can do, is document evidence, right? About the situation, because your sense of reality is so much in question that you wonder, what is it true, what they're saying about, like, could it be real? Am I really that out of it, and I got all this stuff wrong, and I'm remembering everything wrong, and I'm just like, I'm taking everything wrong the way they say I'm doing it? Is that all true? Because you don't know, right? If you don't have any other if you don't have enough facts to anchor yourself to, they have free reign to play around and paint whatever picture they want. So if you have facts that you can gather and put together and document and look at as the items that you're putting on your shelf, and you take that down, you look at these facts and connect it to those other situations going on there, it's like, wait a minute, I know I was right. I saved the email. It's right here. I said that, and and then later they said something completely different, right? So, you know, I was just being nice, and then they made it look like I was being a jerk, right? So that's helpful, right?
That's helpful for yourself. Like lots of times, you taking notes and keeping evidence. It's good for like a reality check for yourself. But using those against them, they might go.
Oh, they will.
They're
guaranteed.
They don't like it.
And you know it too, because you know their behavior. You've tried to argue your point in the past, and they get meaner every time. It's like they just amp up the energy and the effort it takes to beat you down again, right? No matter what point you're trying to bring up. So if you bring more facts to the table, it's not going to help you. Yeah. If the chessboard's laid out there and you're just about to checkmate their king, right? They're just going to sweep the table. That's what they do, right? They're not going to go along with it. So, yeah. So
it's like documenting evidence. It's more like for yourself, and maybe some chance, there might be some chance that you can show it to the other person. So you are not doing this for not fooling yourself, right? That not making yourself believe what they're saying is true. Yeah, exactly. That's the purpose it serves. It's not going to help you in this relationship court of law. It's not going to work. They set all the rules, so they're just going to change the rules on you if you try that. So and set boundaries, right? So we talked about that in the last episode, right? So setting healthy boundaries, and like we said at the beginning of that episode, you have to prepare. You have to let go of the outcome, right? You have to have a reality. Once you've done that exercise of putting everything on the shelf, right, for a while, and you document some evidence and start putting some data points together, and you're building that picture, and you're actually realizing that you're not crazy, and that there is something negative going on here, and then it's time to start taking the next step. You have to have a conversation with yourself, a real reality check, and you have to basically say, you have to come to the realization that it's okay for the relationship to end. Yeah. Because, like we said, if they're abusive, it might be just a recent thing, right? And so in this case where like every situation is different. If it's a long-standing thing of this abuse being in place, forget it. You're going to end the relationship. That's the only way out. That's the only boundary that will work. Or take it to the point where the relationship is essentially ended. They might need to be in your life, right? Because they're a family member and there's no way to remove completely, but you can say the relationship ends at the door. Thank you very much for dropping the stuff off, right? So that kind of thing. That in a long-standing abusive situation, the only way to set the proper boundary is for that relationship to end. Now, in a situation where it's just a recent thing, right? Because that's what we've seen lately in the world, right? Is that it's become more common to see this kind of negative behavior in relationships that were not abusive in the past. In that case, you can give it a try, right? You can give it a try to see if that person can come back and put aside this abusive behavior. Yeah. But you do still have to have, before you try anything, you do have to be realistic with yourself. Yeah.
and be ready for the relationship to end. Any relationship, it doesn't matter what it is.
Because if you are attached to the outcome that you want to fix this relationship or whatever, if you have the attachment and then you are trying to control, it could be you could be aggressive or you could be lessen yourself, right? And being manipulated again, right? So you are, in a way, you either control or be controlled if you have the outcome.
If you are attached to the outcome, yes, exactly.
Right? So that's why you want to let go. If you want to finish this unhealthy relationship, right, then you need to let go of the outcome. Otherwise, you go right back into manipulation, right?
Or you put it in other words, this means it's exactly the same thing here, is to have an agenda. You cannot have an agenda when you're going to make some kind of correction in a relationship, right? Or try to make a correction in the relationship. If you have that hidden agenda, they're going to sense it, and they're going to either manipulate you through it, or they're going to freak out because of it. It's going to happen. You can't get away with it. So
let the universe, let God take care of and lead us to what's best for us.
What's best, because really, no matter what situation you're in, there is another situation waiting for you if you're ready to let go of this negative one, right? So you can't, there's that whole principle of, if in order to make space, there's a comment here. In order to make space, not make space for things, you have to be able to let go of certain things first, right? If your house is packed full of stuff, right, you're not going to be able to get more nice. You're not going to be able to create a nice space for yourself and get different things that are nice. If it's full already, you have to be able to
create
let it go.
Space.
So the opportunities will open up if you're ready to let go of a negative relationship. Is what we're trying to get at. And then, so you have that interaction with them, and you set boundaries, whatever the case may be, right? As appropriate for the situation. It doesn't have to mean the end of the relationship. Just something that will work, just to make it, to set some rules down.
And then once you set the boundary, you gotta follow through. You can't just change, make adjustment. This is the boundary. You gotta follow through. This gotta be strict, right? Otherwise, they just they don't, right? Ignore and stamp on you all over again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the only other thing we would like to add to that, I guess, is that you, at the end of that in that conversation, you can end it by inviting them to relate to you with respect, right? You can leave a door open for them, right, with these boundaries in place. You can let them know you do want them in your life in some way, that you would like that, but as long as those boundaries are respected. So if they're ready, if they're willing, they can still interact with you, but they've got to be respectful. They've got to treat you as a human being, right? As a real person who matters. So and like being strict with the boundary, right? And not letting that person in your house or whatever. If you start doing that, that person might start telling others that you are mean and rude, those things, and you gotta be ready for that too, right? But what's most important is you being healthy, right? Mentally, physically, psychologically,
emotionally being healthy, and if you haven't been, and then this is the start, you might lose not just one relationship, but other relationship that came along with that relationship, right? But you being healthy and you being you is the most important thing right now. And then if those people, other people, not just that person who's bullying, but other people, they might go along with them for a while, and you lose a whole bunch of friends. But those are real open-minded, healthy thinking people. They might come back, right? The relationship,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
Like I'm just talking about my experience when I ended a relationship. My ex-husband, the friends I had was only through my ex-husband, because we immigrated here, right? And every friends that we have was through him. He came here earlier before, and then and I came, so I built friends through him. I didn't have anyone, no family, no friends in Canada, right? So all friends we built together, and when I left everybody. No one. I had no one, but and then I knew that everybody's gonna believe his story, because he's the one who stayed.
Because their relationship is stronger than the relationship you have.
Yeah, and then he stayed in that, right? I was the one who left, so he could say anything he wants, right? He can create a story that make me look bad, everything, and I didn't have that place to defend myself, because I just took off, right? And so I knew that happened, and I knew I lost everybody, but I still have to do it. And then, but you know what? I don't know, 5 years after that, I start to build relationship back, not with my ex-husband, but other people I start to contact, and then they pass. It's for them, it's in the past, right? And I didn't have bad relationship with those people, and good friends, right? And then the things happened between me and ex-husband. I was already in the past, and they were just looking at me as me, right?
So sometimes time does heal wounds, right? So moving out of that situation might be the most traumatic part, and then later it gets somewhat better, right? Because of that. Yeah. So someone's saying hi here.
Hi.
Hello. Thanks for giving us a shout out. If you have any questions or comments, please share those here. Thanks for reaching out here, though. And I also wanted to say another thing about, or I just want to say as well that that's exactly, I had the same thing happen with me, right? When I left that abusive relationship with my family, I lost everybody. There was no carryover for me, and I was okay with that. I had to be okay with that when I dealt with the situation. I had to let go of that outcome, and you did too, right? You had to be okay with it. Otherwise, if you carry over the tragedy of it with you, and you focus on that, if you dwell on it after you leave, you're going to be down. It's going to be very, very hard, because you feel so isolated and feel like you've lost everything. In those situations,
you start using the program that you received from abuser. I'm not good enough, right? So you are still in that same.
You haven't really escaped. So you have to be very disciplined and stay focused on the present. And so any practice that uses present moment awareness and mindfulness is extremely helpful in that kind of situation. Forgiveness is also extremely helpful and extremely healing in that kind of situation, forgiving yourself, including that, right? Please include that to forgive yourself. Even if there's nothing to forgive, just do it anyway. Just forgive yourself, right? Just love yourself, love yourself, love yourself, and reach out, right? You can reach out to us if you're in a situation that's new, anything like that. We'll be happy to provide any kind of support we can. If you understand that there's negative programs, subconscious programs that are creating difficulty for you in the situation. So in other words, maybe perhaps you feel as though you are not, if you feel as though you're not worthy, right? You're not good enough, or that maybe you are crazy, right? All those things, those can be all connected to subconscious programs. And if you reach out to us, you can just schedule a free life breakthrough session. We can talk to you about that and help you work through that and let go of those subconscious programs, because subconscious programs are very powerful. They're 95% of everything that's going on inside of us, inside of our consciousness, is subconscious. It's extremely powerful.
So like consciously, if you try to think, change, right? I'm worthy, I'm worthy, I'm worthy, but the subconscious 95% of you are saying you're not worthy, right? Because it's programmed by other people, you're receiving from other people that you're not worthy, right? And then if you're trying to consciously think and change, sometimes if you do it right, it works, but lots of times it doesn't, because subconscious mind is more powerful. Right?
Yeah, so, exactly. And I'll add one other indicator that you may be on the receiving end of gaslighting, and that's being depressed in some fashion, just or down on yourself, just really hard on yourself. If you find yourself thinking negatively about yourself, it could be because of gaslighting. It could be for other reasons, but either way, that is subconscious programming that's working against you. 100%.
Anxiety too, right?
Yeah, anxiety. Yeah, if you're feeling anxious all the time, that's another one. So all of those things, every single one that we're mentioning here is connected to subconscious programs, and that free life breakthrough is a way to is a pathway towards letting them go. Right? It's an opportunity for letting them go and getting past that, and it changes the game, because when you're depressed and you're down on yourself, that's where those manipulators want you. They want you down. They want to keep you at your weakest rather than at your strongest, because then they win, right? They treat you like a doormat. They run right over you. And so if you're down like that and you want to get out, that's where we can help by changing the game, by removing those things that are keeping you down, so that you can come up to where you should be, to where you normally would be, and find a better way. That's what this is. That's what that's all about.
Yeah. Instead of them pushing you and they're walking all over you, right? And that's being depressed and being manipulated, and you making yourself little, right? So that's they want you to stay that way, being small, being weak, so they can push you whenever they want. But if you learn to be strong, right, mentally, emotionally, physically, everything, learn to be strong by changing subconscious program, and confident and feeling worthy and all those things, and then they cannot push you around, and they don't like it, and if it doesn't work, eventually they will leave, right? But then it's changing. Change starts from you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the only place it can start, is from inside of you, because they're not going to change. The situation isn't going to magically just change, very likely, not very likely at all. So it's on you to make a decision that you want things to be different. And that's what that free life breakthrough is all about. So and so we're going to keep talking about this. I think there's probably other aspects of bullying we can focus on. So we might be continuing this next week. Not sure, but check
If you
it out.
have any request, like this kind of relationship situation, what to do, those kind of thing, and send a request or questions, and then maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Focus on those things.
Yeah, and you can also visit our shop because we have courses available. Some of them are free to investigate to find out if you do have these subconscious blocks, right? If there's something that is there in your subconscious that is really working against you, keeping you down because of negative programming that's gotten in there, you can find out for yourself just by going to our shop, right? So that's another thing you can do.
That's very powerful, right? Because you don't know that you are, because it's subconscious, right? You're not aware, and then but that's controlling you, right? Instead of I'm doing like again doing a affirmation, and then I'm worthy, and then don't feel change, right? And why I'm not feeling the change? Because I'm doing it every day, right? And check doing this thing and see if there's a block in subconscious mind.
Yeah.
And then once you know there's a block, right, then you can remove it.
So what is this thing you're talking about that you can do? Well, it's muscle testing.
Yeah.
You can muscle test because muscle testing is it's not magic or anything woo-woo. It's simply physiological. It's just that it works it basically works like a lie detector. So you're using a lie detector on yourself, but using your own body to find out if you're stronger. When you're strong, both your conscious mind and your subconscious mind are working in the same direction, right? And when you're weaker, then they're going in different directions, right? So whenever you're lying, it means your subconscious mind knows the truth, it never lies, but your conscious mind is lying for some reason, right? Like, I love myself, for example, right? You can find out, right? If you believe it subconsciously, because you may not. And then if you don't, then it's going to be hard to not be depressed, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you can find that out for yourself just by visiting our shop, sakuso.ca/shop. Yep. And we'll see you next week on Aether, Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern. And thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thank
Share,
you very much.
like, subscribe. Love us. We love you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.